Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Rich here today, and today we're going to be working on the 99 TJ. So, the first thing that we're going to be doing is, if you take a look here, we're going to be taking off, or not taking off, but loosening these bolts while the Jeep is on the ground. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a pick, we're going to pick out this center cap, so that way we can get at the wheel hub. So, that way we can just crack it loose. Easier to do when it's on the ground. So first crack all 5 and then you should be good. The other thing I will tell you to do is we are going to be lifting the Jeep, so make sure that you go and put your e-brake on, and if you have a couple of little mini stands, you can always shove them under the tire. They look like that. You shove them under the tire so that way no matter what it's going to roll, not going to roll back. If you're doing the rear ones, it could be a little bit more tricky. Make sure you put those under the front tires and block them so that way if you have a standard Jeep it doesn't roll. That's the biggest thing. Alright, so like I said, crack all 5 bolts and then we're gonna pop out the center piece here. Alright, little mini screwdriver. You'll see it right here. Just slide it in a little bit and it'll pop right out. Once you pop it out, we need to loosen that. And oh my gosh, that looks pretty rusty. Let's maybe take the tire off. Take off all 5 bolts, take the tire out of the way, or use it as a seat. Then you have a seat while you're doing your project today. See this cotter pin right here? There's 2 little legs to it. We're gonna have to bend these legs out so they face like this. Same with this one. And squish them together so that way they're straight. Then you're gonna work this buddy out. You might have to hammer it out, but we're gonna make it as straight as we can so it can slide back through right here. And then you're just gonna love tap it here until it starts coming out that way. Look right here, you can see that there is the nut right upon here. We're gonna have to take that off so that way we can switch out the hub. Now, to do so, our next thing that we need to do is we're gonna try and crack it loose with the vehicle like this. But remember I taught you how to pop that out? You might have to put the rim back on and put the rim back on, but loosely, and then drop the vehicle and use the weight of the vehicle to help you for getting this nut off, because this nut is going to be on there tight. Like usually, yeah, they're at least at like 150 pounds of torque. I don't know what this one goes to, so don't quote me on that. Don't put it back down on that. But yeah, we're going to loosen this, and hopefully you got a pipe or a breaker bar, because this is going to be fun. Oh, and also a can of WD-40 or penetration fluid. Just spray it all in here, let it penetrate, give it about 5-10 minutes to penetrate in there, shoot some more if you'd like, and then from there, it's time to work this bolt off. I went and picked up the socket. It is a 36 millimeter, and this is going to be fun. So, be ready. Make sure, oh yeah, she fits nice. This is why we shot penetrating fluid. Now, the next thing we're going to do is shoot a little bit more penetrating fluid. And then if you have a breaker bar, that is what you want to do next. So grab your breaker bar and try and crack that nut. The secondary person, the other way of doing this without putting the tire back on and all that other fun stuff. Get them to go in there. Press on the brake. While they're pressing on the brake, you come over here. Now, we just so happenly, we have the ratchet and a big pipe. This is one way of doing it, but I'm telling you, it's no halfers on the pipe. It's all the way deep in the pipe, and it better be made of steel. If you're using a piece of plastic or something, you're nuts. But once you do that, literally this one has never, like, he's had the Jeep here for what, 10 years? 10 years he's had this Jeep, and he's never cracked that nut, and with all the penetration fluid and stuff like that, she just came right off. So there you go. Let's pull that bolt off, and then I'll show you the next step. Next thing we're going to do, remove this bolt that is right here. Sorry, pointing at the nipple. Right here is the bolt, and then there's one more right on the back right here. It's a 13 mil. Just loosen these up, and we're going to just take them right out so we can slide the caliper off. Very important. I only used a metal hammer because this rotor is being replaced. You can see it's pretty dinged, or not dinged, but it's got this scratch mark around it because one of his pads is bad. So we're either going to get it reground or something like that. But if you are doing that, use a rubber mallet and go around and do it with a rubber mallet. All right. Spray penetrating fluid, and then what you're going to do, make sure this is out of the way. Hammer that, and you're going to continuously go around Slowly spin it, hammer, spin, hammer, and you'll slowly see it works its way off the hub. It's going to be loud, it's going to be annoying, and you're just going to continuously hit the back end here and spin. So hit, spin, then you'll see all of a sudden you'll start making crazy movement, and it'll be right here. Now just take it off so we can expose the hub. I'll get Chris to do that here. Just lift off the rotor. Boof. Hey, look, it's our hub, and it is definitely rusted. So you'll be able to see, okay, whoa, look at those bolts. Yeah, those are going to be fun. See the 3 hub bolts right there? Well, those are on the other side, so now it's time to loosen those off. I would shoot some penetrating fluid on this side, though, because those bolts are rusted. Next this is a 13mm spline socket, which is like a 12-point. Let me see if I can get this off for you. Basically, what a 12-point looks like is like that. So make sure that that's what your socket looks like, and you are going to need a socket. These are going to be rusted in there nice and tight. Okay? Perfect. I'll show you when I get the bolt off. So, when the hub's like here, just like you do with the rotor, hit it all the way on the back of the hub, and it'll slowly move off. And then once it separates from here, comes right off, and then it should slide right off the spline here. Make sure when we're putting this on, we're going to put some grease on there for sure. But you want to see why this one was making a whole lot of weird noises? Well, no. This was completely popped off. Like it's all done. That bearing exploded. But yes, it could have been a lot worse for sure. Anyways, I'm gonna get this all separated here, and then we're gonna get ready for the new hub. Want to hear something amazing? Yeah. Clean off all this. Just take a rag, give it a wipe. You'll be fine. Just use your hand. Who cares? It's an off-road vehicle. You can even clean this a little bit if you want to. And then when you do that, this just slides right on. You just have to line it up on the teeth. And then we'll turn this to there so it lines up. And then the next thing, of course, to do is to clean your bolts, and then we'll put them back in here. But first off, we shall clean off these bolts with either some of that penetration fluid down there, but the biggest thing is you remember there's a little bit of rust here. We just want to clean that up so that way it doesn't strip out the threads when they go back in. Okay?
Right.
So, if you're taking a look here, make sure your shield's in that way. Torque up the back ones. Those 3 bolts, you're going to just thread them in lightly, and as you thread them in, they go to 75 foot-pounds. After you get those 3 bolts in, like I said, just cinch them up to 75 foot-pounds, and then we're going to, from there on, yeah, just tighten that up. And then the center bolt, just put that on loosely. Now, how the center bolt goes is big washer, big nut. Just thread it on there, so that way there is no way you can forget that later, or so it's not sitting on the ground. But just so it's like that, we will tighten that later when the wheel is on the ground. But for right now, all you need to do is torque up these, and this will be 175 when we come back to that. The rear bolts, we're going to do those at 75. Make sure that you do those 75 torque pounds. Yes. Foot-pounds. And then the rear center, or the front center one, which will be right here. So once you get your new rotor and you slide it on, or in your case, who knows, but yes, once you get the new rotor, slide it on, boom, look at that, looks beautiful. If it's not sinking it all the way, you could be like I originally did, and I had the pan guard that is supposed to protect the caliper on the wrong way. It won't allow it to sit back far enough. So now that I can see it sits far enough, we're doing good. Now, so this just sits right here. And you might be like, why does it sit so loose? Don't worry. Over time, from the wheel being compressed on it and heat and everything, you'll hate it. It will sit super tight, which taking it off, I'm sure you've seen. It's kind of crazy. It literally welds itself to the back. All right, so now that this is on there like that, let's start working with the caliper and the brake pads. What we're going to do is we're going to be using a screwdriver to push this back, or a plier, so that way we can push the caliper in and slide in our new pads. The easiest way that I found to, if you don't have a circle clamp to bring your disc brake pad back in. The best way I've found is if you take your old rotor, put it on. Take the old caliper, put it here, line up the 2 bolts, just tie them in. Don't torque them to spec, just tie them in. After you do that, take a pry bar or a big, and I mean a big screwdriver, and you're just going to go like right here, and you're going to hold sort of the front of the brake, and then you're going to be prying on this. While putting pressure on here, crack the bleeder. This is a 10 millimeter. Crack the bleeder, have your pot underneath, and then just squish it back. And you'll see the piston will go in as you press, and then right after you're done, quickly tie that in, and then you can take your screwdriver out. I've already done this, and then now I'm just going to loosen these bolts off, take this off, put our new rotor on, and then I'm going to put on our new pads. This is what I meant, one of those winding clamps, but this is actually a brake tool caliper squish. So it's meant to actually push the piston back in. So when it's done, it should be flat like that. After it's flat like so, now we can start putting in our new stuff. So we're going to put in the new rotor now, and we're going to put in our new brake pads. The new pad, how you know? There's the 3 teeth, writing and whatnot. Just face it. There's your little tooth. Want that facing that way. We're going to squeeze that pad in like so. And then, of course, the next pad, which is our up top pad. As you can see, teeth line up at the very top, and we're just going to pinch this in. It just sandwiches in there. One tooth goes in there, and then, yeah, other one will go in there. I'll show you in a sec. As you can see, brake pads are in. They fit around the rotor. Their bottom teeth, which are in the shape of hooks, will slide. You just slide them, wiggle them up onto there, and then you should be able to slide it forward. Just a little bit of playing, that's all this takes. And again, it can be fun, just a warning. And then the other thing you got to make sure you do is back off on the caliper. There's those 2 rubber pieces. You have to pull them out towards the body, so that way you can slide it around there. So let's see how good we're doing. That needs to come down there. That slides on right there. Perfect. Caliper is seated. Now we just need to thread the 2 bolts in. So for the brake caliper bolts right there, the mounting bolts, I just looked up online and they're saying 11 foot-pounds of torque. All I will say for you to do is, if you don't have a torque wrench, just use one hand and tighten them with one hand with your ratchet. So, example, go like this, and once you snug it up, go maybe quarter to half a turn more, and go like this. If it doesn't move, you're good. And I mean, I'm looking at this, and this ain't moving. Looking at my brake pads, they're set. Perfect. New rotor and new pads installed. Copy that for the other side if you got to do the other side, I guess. Next stuff is really easy. We're going to put the... we're going to get the person inside the Jeep there, press the brake, and we're going to torque this down to spec, which again was 175. Now, if you don't want to, you could try 150, 160, but I do suggest, I mean, the manufacturer apparently says 175, so just something to think about. Okay. Last but not least, put these like so it is on there. Then you will take said cover ring, which holds the nut there, and then we're going to take that cotter pin, slide it back through the bolt, and then wrap the arms around just like it was when we took it off. From this point, what you're going to do is put your rim back on. Put your rim back on and just loosely put the bolts in, like just do it hand tight with a ratchet. Don't crank them down, because it's much easier to just drop the Jeep back onto the rim and then, or onto the wheel. And then after you have it on the wheel, then you torque them to spec. You can put them to 65 pounds of torque, anywhere between 65 and 110, whatever you're comfortable with, and then just check your torque specs. And if you don't have a torque wrench, just tighten them until, like, really tight. You want them on nice and tight, so that way if you have to come back, or so that way, of course, your wheel doesn't fall off when you're going down the road. So it's always good to go tighter. The only thing that sucks about going too tight is if you have to do roadside maintenance and you don't have a nice wrench, it's very hard to take off. So yeah, just put your rim back on, tighten those nuts up, and you're good. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.